Penguin Random House Audio presents Outraged, Why We Fight About Morality and Politics and How to Find Common Ground, by Kurt Gray. Read for you by David Marantz. To everyone trying their best to understand. Introduction. Swerve, the power of harm. People today are divided. We are filled with outrage. We fight about morality and politics at the polls, on social media, and at the dinner table. These clashes destroy friendships and threaten our democracy. Although some people are happy to be angry, most of us want less outrage and more understanding. This book is for everyone who wants to better understand the other side and the hidden psychology behind moral conflicts. Deep in our minds, every fight about morality comes down to one thing: competing perceptions of harm. We get outraged at people when they deny our assumptions about what causes suffering and when they reject our views of victimhood. In politics and everyday life, we get angry when people disagree about who is really harmed in a situation. Competing perceptions of victimhood fuel conflict in the media, at work, and in road rage, like the night when someone threatened to kill me. I was 16 and had just gotten my driver's license, speeding through suburbia in my maroon Pontiac Grand Am, nicknamed Fireball, while my friends gossiped and blasted 1990s hip-hop. The rain had just stopped, and the roads were slick. We were late to the movie. We raced around the corner, and I could see the lights of the theater way up ahead. I accelerated. Suddenly, someone in the back shouted over the din. We were about to blow by the shortcut to the theater. It was a left turn, and we were in the right-hand lane, so I swerved across the road. I didn't see the brand-new Mercedes in my blind spot until I had completely cut him off. Our tires squealed on the wet asphalt as we both spun and braked. Our cars sat in the middle of a deserted intersection, steaming in the night. There were no witnesses to my reckless driving, or what happened next. I turned off the music and opened my window to apologize. The other driver got out of his car and slammed his door shut. He was in his 20s, wearing a track jacket and a thick silver chain. His eyes were dark with rage. He pointed straight at me and said, "I'm going to fucking kill you." I panicked and stomped on the gas. Everything in the car was dead quiet. No one could believe what was happening, and no one knew what to do. The other driver got back into his car and roared after us. Within moments, he was riding my back bumper. My brain was blank, filled with nothing but fear. Without thinking, I blindly took random turns through empty parking lots until we ended up behind a big box store. On one side, the loading docks loomed above us, and on the other side, a steep hill rose. We were trapped in a dark canyon. He weaved back and forth behind us, corralling us into the corner. He parked right behind me to cut off any escape. My friends and I felt like trapped animals. The guy got out of the car, shouted, "You're dead," and came toward us. One friend in the back seat shouted, "Lock the door." It probably saved my life. I clicked the lock, and a second later he was hauling on the door handle, shouting, "I'm going to kick the fucking shit out of you." I opened my window a bit to apologize again. He slipped his hand in through the narrow opening, grabbed my collar, and shook me. Then he reached down deeper, trying to unlock the door. I smacked his hand away while continuing to apologize, a mess of instincts, the raw animal drive of self-preservation and the human intuition that I had to talk with him to somehow diffuse his anger. Then the clearest thinking of my friends, the one who reminded me to lock the door, held up a cell phone, still uncommon in the late 1990s, she had borrowed from her mom that night. "Stop or I'll call the cops." He kept shaking and slapping me for a few more moments, then paused and said something crazy. Filled with righteous outrage, he spat, "Call the cops. I'll tell them what you did." It didn't make any sense. I was the one fearing for my life. I was the teenager trapped in the car. He was literally assaulting me and threatening to kill me, but he thought that the law would be on his side. How could he be the one outraged, convinced that he was in the moral right? The roots of righteous indignation. I couldn't stop thinking about the events of that night. In the shower, while trying to fall asleep, while waiting in line, I was plagued by the memory of it. I would see the emptiness of that loading dock under the glare of headlights, remember the feeling of panic and helplessness, and then the relief when he finally walked away from my window, got into his car, and sped off into the night. Eventually, the memories of terror faded, but I couldn't forget his indignation. How could he be so emphatic that I was wrong and he was right, when he was the one threatening me? How could he be angry at me when I should be furious with him? He was the villain, and I was the victim. I remained confused for a long time, but the events of that night began to make sense once I started a PhD in social psychology at Harvard, studying how our minds make sense of right and wrong. I am now a professor of psychology and neuroscience at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where I direct the Deepest Beliefs Lab and the Center for the Science of Moral Understanding. My job is to make sense of moral disagreement and find ways to help people in conflict understand each other. After more than a decade of research and over 100 published papers, I finally have enough distance from that night to see how he could be so outraged. The other driver was morally righteous because he felt victimized. He felt as if he had been harmed. He had come within a razor's edge of being injured by my reckless driving. From my perspective, I was the one being harmed, but from his perspective, he was the one in harm's way. Because each of us felt endangered by the other, we both felt that we were morally right and the other person was morally wrong. Harm explains more than road rage. It also explains why society is so angry today, with everyone arguing about who is truly a victim and who is most vulnerable to suffering. Outraged politics. People today are most obviously outraged when it comes to politics. Liberals and conservatives shout at each other at school board meetings, at political rallies, and on social media. Pro-choicers and pro-lifers call each other monsters and murderers, and debates about immigration, racial inequality, and censorship focus less on policy and more on who is acting like a Nazi. Even friends and families demonize each other when it comes to moral differences. One 2021 study found that 1 in 7 Americans ended a friendship because of arguments over COVID. Moral outrage also poisons our government. Since the 1940s, the Brookings Institution has been tracking legislative action on political issues and found that our government has acted on fewer and fewer of these issues over.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?